so let's get started with our Community Empowerment Speaker Series for today. We are proud to welcome our guest speaker who joins us from Atlanta. Please give it up for Tiffany Kirk. And please also give it up for Mr. Blackman, who joins us from WDIV TV. All right? All right, he said he's going to get his good side. I love this suit. All right, give it up for our guests once again, everybody. And we shall begin.
On, mic check. Is good?
This is the good side, he said.
Every side is good for her. But she took the best one. So good evening, everybody. How y'all doing? That's terrible. How y'all doing? We appreciate you all being here, and Tiffany and I are just going to have a conversation, and we encourage you, and this is off the cuff. I'm kind of changing the script. My name is Darnell Blackburn. I think I'm somewhat was introduced. I'm the crime and safety expert for Local 4. I do the traffic in the morning for the morning show as well. Little plug to watch the show so I can keep my little job. Who don't watch? Some of y'all ain't watching, so I need my job. Y'all watch the show. Little quick plug. And so, I'm here, and I thought it best, and Reverend Sheffield thought it best, and Tippy and I thought it best that I would come and be able to have a conversation with her based on what she does and who she is and why she does. Whoa, all right. Why she does what she does. And so we're going to have just a conversation, and I'm going to ask you if it's okay. If throughout the conversation, if you all want to interject, if you have a question, is it all right with you if they just raise your hand?
I'm good with that.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So I'm going to call her Tiff, y'all, because we go back. We got some history. Not really, but kind of do. So Tiff, we'll start with this. Tell us about who Tiffany is, kind of your journey, and we talk about empowerment. You have to have something in you in order to give it to other people. So just kind of start with that.
Well, thank you so much. It is great to be in Detroit. It's been a while since I've been here, but it's been a beautiful day so far. So I'm Tiffany Kirk, and I'm a native of Midwest, St. Paul, Minnesota. And so born and raised in St. Paul, in the hood. I know y'all probably don't believe it's hoods in St. Paul, but there is. But I'm biracial. I say mixed, just like I prefer black to African American, but that's just me. But I grew up in an all-black neighborhood, raised primarily by my white mother. And, grew up in the 90s, primarily 80s and 90s. And there was a huge shift in what was happening in the community from the 80s to the 90s, as y'all probably remember, some of you. And so a lot of things happened during that time, which I think is where really this passion to help other people to not take these paths that my brother, my friends, family members took in either the drug game or joined a gang. I think that was kind of the start of what ignited something in me to say, I know it's a better way. So it's a journey from there, moved to Atlanta in 2013, and kind of picked up where I left off, and I'm doing more of the work that we'll talk a little bit about today, but that's really where the spark started, so I'll probably save a little bit more, but I'm currently the founder of Project Restart, which is a nonprofit that aims to reduce recidivism, which is that cycle of in and out of incarceration, by providing entrepreneurship training, connection to employment or education opportunities. But I've just recently become the executive director of Common Good Atlanta, and that's a 501c3 comprised of really 60 college professors that go inside of the prisons to teach college education so that when men and women come home, they've got some credits to apply towards their next steps. So they're teaching them philosophy, Shakespeare, writing, acting, in the colleges, which really brings humanity into that space for them.
So what I heard is we'll talk about Project Restart, we'll talk about good. It's the other is
Common Good
common
Atlanta.
common good as well. But what I heard first is an entrepreneurial spirit, because Project Restart is your baby, right? And we're going to talk about Project Restart because that's what we primarily want to talk about. Project Restart is your baby. Common Good is what you do to pay the bills. Did I hear that correctly?
That's about it. That's about
Okay.
it.
But they yet are intertwined. So let's talk about Project Restart and kind of let's talk about why. You just mentioned somewhat about your brother, but what, personally, how this has affected you. The idea of mass incarceration, the idea of recidivism, preventing people from going back in. But give me like the foundation. Why did you get involved or with Project Restart in the first place?
Well, I think it did. I'll go back to my brother, because when he got locked up at 19 or 20 years old, it was a first-time offense for a very small drug charge. And he did over 2 years, but he got 20 years probation for a first-time offense. And what happened is that offense, it affected more than just him, and whoever the victim was the person who purchased that drug from him. It affects the family, it affects the community. There are a lot of collateral consequences that come out of incarceration that some people don't think about. A lot of people want to just throw people away, warehouse them because of the systems that have failed them. And what happened for my brother was that he had a really difficult time all the way through his 40s in establishing employment and housing. And those are two of the key fundamental, what we feel are rights that are so hard for people with a background to achieve and to maintain. And so my mother ended up helping to raise his 3 children. And the mother of one, ironically, had some problems with that same drug that he got locked up for. But she passed away just a few years ago. And so there's effects on the family. It prolongs the wealth sometimes that a mother, a grandmother, an auntie, a cousin can accumulate over the course of their life, because they're putting things on hold for themselves because they're caring for their family. They're putting money on somebody's books. It's just this repetitive cycle that continues. And so I think that's one of the whys. But let me tell you, as Reverend Sheffield, a man of God, can probably, we had some of these conversations. I think it was God, because I didn't go seeking doing the education for people with backgrounds. I actually started my career as a teacher, transitioned into banking as a financial literacy instructor, created some curriculum, but there was somebody in the room when I was teaching financial literacy that said, your voice is what these men at this program need. Would you be interested in coming to a reentry program and teaching financial literacy? And that turned into a 2-year contract of doing financial literacy, GED, and basic computer classes. From there, I was approached by a women's prison who needed the same thing. And they said, we need a woman that can come out there and speak their language, not talking way up here about investing. They need to know how to get out of check systems if they messed up a bank account. They need to know how to save $50, not $5 million, So just keeping it at a meeting them where they were kind of tone. And that was how I got into the work of teaching people with backgrounds and people who were incarcerated. So right there I had inside the walls experience and then the reentry experience. And that's kind of what Project Restart is. It's welcoming people when they come home and giving them a village of support and the guidance to be able to get to the next step.
So y'all can clap. I think that was clap worthy. Definitely.
Thank you. Thank you.
That is. You got a question?
That's a great question. And recidivism, just by definition, is when someone gets released from prison, within 3 years they will return if something doesn't happen, right? 3 years is a recidivism rate, and that's how they track it, is if you go back within 3 years. So the national rate is over 70% nationally. And this is just a testament of the power of education, is that when somebody has a high school diploma, that number drops to 50%. When they get a bachelor's degree, it goes all the way down to 13% or 13.5%. For people coming out of Common Good Atlanta, it's 0.5% as the recidivism rate. So that's the power of education and having a community of support. And I think that we've talked about, what are the things people can do to really decrease this? I mean, let's start in the schools in increasing literacy rates. Let's start breaking the cycle before it even starts and make sure that these children have the right education and go beyond high school, because that's going to drop the rate substantially lifelong.
You just jumped the gun so much.
Oh, man, I'm sorry.
No, it's good.
Getting carried away.
Because we want to. We'll talk about how you do that. How do we do that? We'll get to that. Your question.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And I know that's like $24,000 per person in the state of Georgia that's being spent on incarceration. So yeah, people get a little funny when you talk about things like defund the police. That doesn't necessarily mean we don't need policing, right? We just need to shift some of those dollars into the spaces that we know can prevent crime, can prevent incarceration. So I love that thought.
I love that. And my background is I was a police officer, so that's speaking. So I always say, not defund, refund, reallocate the funds that we have. So just as Tiffany said, this has to start at the elementary school level. And so we have to stop that. So I ain't gonna get to preaching, y'all. Slow it down. You give me, Dave, don't make me go. Go ahead, brother.
So when we talk about, thank you, reallocating funds, and you talk about it starting from a young age, we know that prisons are determined who's going to be in prison at that same age based on the test score. So kudos to you. So the data does suggest that. Having worked with men and women that come out of prison, trying to reduce recidivism rates for like the last 15 to 20 years, I know that matching them with a career or a job opportunity is significant, especially when we're talking about men. If a man has spent a significant amount of time in prison away from his children, when he gets out, the first thing he wants to do is, in most cases, is provide, do something for them. How do we match them up with the right opportunity where they don't become frustrated? And I think that was something that I really worked with. And I'll tell you this quick story, and I'll sit down. I had a young guy say, man, this guy getting on my nerves. I'm about to quit, man. I'm about to go upside his head. I said, look, chill out. Don't quit. Let's find another job, and then we'll do that. It's better to find a job with the job than without a job. So give them the job skills, the soft skills that they need, and also pro-social activity, what they do with the other 16 hours that they have after they finish 8 hours of work. However you want to answer it. Thank you.
So before you do that, this is a great opportunity to talk about how Project Restart works. So I think dive into that.
This is it, the commercial. That's it, yeah. I've been waiting for. So Project Restart does exactly kind of what you were alluding to. So we're a 12-week program, and you have to have a background to get into Project Restart. We've had people come to us like, I have a background, I don't know if I can get in. It's like, no, we are designed for people with backgrounds because we know what those barriers are. So during that 12 weeks, we start with personal development. That's number one, because you can't figure out where you're going if you don't know who you are and where you've been. And so we have them do a values assessment because we want alignment. You need to align what you're doing next with who you are. We do an aptitude test, and I think that should be critical. Before any child even graduates high school, they should take an aptitude test, which is, and I did one called U-Science, YOUSCIENCE. We don't have time to do it in Project Restart, so we do a shorter one called Indigo Pathways. But the results were so accurate of who I am and what jobs would be good for me based on who I am. And so we do the self-exploration, we do the personal development, which is how to write your resume up or make sure that that's polished. We do financial literacy. That's major, because no matter what you do, you need to manage your money, and that will help prevent you from going back when you manage it well. We do entrepreneurship training, which our entrepreneurship trainer is a very good friend of Mr. Darnell's here. So we do entrepreneurship training. So we focus on the 3 E's: education, employment, and entrepreneurship. There really is no other way to make money, right? Education's gonna upskill you. Employment's gonna bring in money, fill the gaps if you're working on your entrepreneurship venture. And then entrepreneurship, that can be the job that you don't have to get permission to work. That's your job, you create it. And that's why that makes so much sense for people with backgrounds. At the end of the program, next week, they get to pitch for capital, because we gotta pair capital with these dreams. If you don't have a little money to go with the dream, it's really difficult to get it off the ground, and a lot of people will become defeated and deflated without some money. So we've been able to grant up to $1,500 to go towards their next step, and then we can match them with programs that are degree-bearing programs where we pay a portion of the tuition, give them a warm introduction to Atlanta Tech. For instance, we got 2 looking at Atlanta Tech right now. We pair them up with them. They help complete the FAFSA process to get them to the finish line. So I think that's an example of how we, and mentorship, let me not forget that. Oh my gosh, that's really where the magic happens. We get some professionals that mentor our people, and they can sit and do the one-on-ones. Because a classroom setting, you can get some information, but when you have a one-on-one where you can go deeper, that's where you're really gonna get the support you need.
Thanks.
Thank you.
That's good stuff.
Thanks for that question.
So let's talk about this in terms of a Project Restart a little more, and the 3 E's: education, employment, and entrepreneurship. What are some of the surprises that you've seen, like in terms of entrepreneurship? Give me some success stories. Give me some things that you've seen that have, because people need, we can talk about this stuff all day long, but if people don't see something tangible and see this, people don't become what they often can't see. Right. And so give us some of those surprising success stories.
Well, one of the biggest, I would say, and I wouldn't say we had a 100% direct hand in this, but one of our first year students, her name is Bridget Simpson, and she just had this passion. She was an activist at the time she came into the program, and she had done 10 years in prison, and it was a crime really her boyfriend committed. She was kind of caught up in it, and she had a lot of frustration in her. And what she ended up doing after she came out of the program is she helped raise $100,000 to help people that got denied for the PPP loan because they had a felony. When that first round of PPP money came out, if you had a felony, you could not qualify. And the look-back period was pretty far back. It might have been over 10 years if that felony was committed. They did, for the second round, reduce that to like a 5-year or 3-year look-back period. But understand, there were a lot of people with felonies that had business issues that couldn't get the PPP money because of that record. But I say all of that to say she has continued, and now she has a bail bond project where she bails people out of prison. And in Georgia, they had just passed and added a bunch of new misdemeanors that were needing to require bail. And they put in the clause that bail bond companies or bail assistance companies could only bail out 2 people per year. She was one of them that was named. She pushed and fought so hard that part of it was waived, at least now temporarily. And this is at the state level, and John Legend even mentioned her in her program, that she was doing this work and that programs like hers need to continue. So that's one example of someone who just went on to do something great. And another one, he's doing now a multifamily housing development, and we gave him his first $1,500 to get one house to rent to people that were going to college when they came out of prison. But now he's moved on to a multifamily development. So that seed money matters, that motivation and mentorship matters. So those are two success stories that I could share that were really more around like activism and housing and some of those larger social issues.
Thank you. That's awesome. I think we need to hear that. We all need to hear that, and they, obviously they need to see that. Those people who are struggling and fighting through this. So you've been a teacher. You worked in financial institutions and nonprofits. Those things, they correlate to some degree, but these are three different things. And I often think about this is the fact that when we're talking about recidivism, we're talking about things that we've been through personally. You shared the story about your brother. Our platform propels us to our purpose often. And with the fact that, you're teaching, and you're teaching in school, then you start teaching literacy, you're working in a financial institution, now all of a sudden this door opens up for you, and you're teaching, people who are incarcerated or have been incarcerated. How does this, what type of message do you share with the people in the program in terms of this, and how does that translate into encouraging them?
Well, I tell them there's one thing all of the cohorts kind of have this understanding and agreement that when they come home, they have this kind of catch-up syndrome, that they have to hurry up and make up for all of the lost years. And, they want to get to Z, and they want to take the elevator and not the stairs because they missed out on all these years, and that's very understandable, And so what we talk about is live in the moment, learn as much as you can in this phase, and we teach them to break their life into phases, break their goals into phases, because you will burn out if you're trying to get from A to Z right now. All of us do this, right? We want everything to happen right now, but we break those things into bite-sized pieces and say, where are you at right now? You want to teach people how to invest, but do you need to do some training yourself first? Do you need to get the LLC next? Do you need to take care of some debt, build your savings to invest in phase 4? So cherish where you're at now, figure out how to work on the personal development. Pay attention, though, to that passion, because that's not a mistake. Those things that we feel, they're real, and whatever we do next should be aligned with that passion for sure. But it's just a matter of slowing down and making sure that it's, we've all heard of those SMART goals, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, time-bound. Make sure it's realistic and make sure you got your time frame, but don't spin your wheels so fast that you burn out and then give up on the phase 4.
You said that so eloquently. I'm going to put it like the way I know it. How you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And
That's right.
That's you said it eloquently, but that's what I have to think, because we all go through this process. So working in the financial industry, and now the financial industry being married to your nonprofit purpose, what you're doing. Tell us about some of the challenges. You talked about the PPP money that the young lady was educated to learn about and realize, or through her business, that was something that people were being disparagingly treated for. Talk about like some of the background in terms of financial. We were talking about this kind of in the back room about the challenges that people who are returning citizens face in terms of finances and maybe financing programs.
Right. So there are a lot of financial obligations people face day one. I mean, catching up on debts and then restitution and fines and court fees and lawyer fees and trying to pay their mom back for helping or their wife back. That don't
stop when you in.
It doesn't.
None of that it's still there.
It continues, and inflation continues too. So, you got to figure that. Some of the biggest barriers, I mean, even to get a checking account can be difficult when you come home, because if you don't have an address, you don't have a state ID, that's going to be a barrier. And so one of the things when I was in banking as a community development manager, which was really primarily responsible for giving out money in low and moderate income communities, affordable housing, small business development, that was my role at the bank for 2 different banks for over 10 years in Atlanta. And so I would train the bankers, when someone comes in here without an ID, here are the places you can direct them. Here are some programs you can direct them to. And a lot of times, people aren't worried about it. It's just no instead of not right now, or here's what I can do, you know? And so I think you have to really do the training, and you have to have a heart, though, because so many people are worried about their quota for the day, how many accounts they open, but there's a human being that could be sent back to prison if he doesn't get this right, if she doesn't get this right. And so we got to slow down, and we got to make sure that that message is loud and clear. I think the other challenges are, you know, we talked about PPP, but SBA loans just overturned the ruling that if you had a felony, you didn't qualify. That was in 2023. Now SBA loans are open for people with felonies, as well as the Pell Grant. The Pell Grant just got reinstated in prisons after 26 years. People who were in prison could not take advantage of financial aid, the Pell Grant. So that was a sidebar. But in the financial world, even the FHA loans, that's federal. Anything government related, there's a chance you're not going to qualify for because of your background. But after George Floyd, that was the blessing of George Floyd, is a lot of this was being put under a microscope and started to be overturned and changed. But I would say that those are kind of the main barriers that people with backgrounds face. Otherwise, it's easier to own a home than rent. If you're not doing FHA, your background is not considered. So we really motivate people to own their home versus rent, because a banker, when you're going for a conventional mortgage, a felony is not considered at all. That's not a part of the application process. So it's easier to own than rent.
I love what you're saying here, all of it, but just to think about, you know, we think about what we can do, you know, and all of us have different jobs, have different things that, hey, Steve, what's happening? Different things. That's that, man, I'm like, squirrel. Sorry, I'm back. I just saw you. So we have different things that we can do. And when we talk about that or think about it, something as simple, we black. As black folks, we need to realize that it's more difficult for black folks. And so something as simple as taking the extra step to say, not just you don't have a state ID, but here's where you can go get one. It's so important, it's so crucial for us to spread and to educate and to help and assist other people. And so I think that that's so powerful to just think about that. And to think about the idea that everybody just wants the basic things. They want to have a roof over their head. They want to be able to take care of their family and sustain a lifestyle. And so keeping those things in mind, it causes us to have to just go that extra mile and to have programs like Project Restart. So, sorry, that's my little, go ahead, I digress because it's just so important. Yes, sir. Recidivism? It's a tough one.
And also, like you spoke on us being black people, knowing how incarceration not only affects loved ones, not only knowing how it affects our loved ones that are no longer with us and are away for however many years or whatnot. What can we do, along with the programs that Ms. Kirk is providing for us and, you know, providing us the information on, to help decrease this? And also, what are some of the major catalysts that you hear from people that you're trying to help as to what caused them to reoffend, to go back, you know, that are things that we don't probably think about, you know, that we can do to help stop from happening?
Yeah, those are great questions. I'll tell you an example. We do an in-person budgeting simulation with our participants every year where we give them a mock scenario with their income, their family size, their occupation, and then we teach them, here's your gross pay, here's your net pay. Out of this, we're gonna build your budget. 35% for housing, 15% for transportation, 10% for savings, and they visit these stations and make a budgeting decision. And one of the girls this year said, Miss Tiffany, this is why we go back. I'm broke, I had to go back to the second job station twice to get a job as an Uber driver and a pizza delivery driver. And I got 2 little kids at home. I can't afford, and this was how they took it so seriously in this simulation of what their real life consists of. She said, this is why I have gone back. So, I mean, that's only one example, but a lot of it is just being told no, doors being closed in their face because they can't get a job. You know, not having stable housing makes it difficult. Not being able to go to college because you're bouncing around from house to house. How can you study for school? You don't have a laptop to even apply for a job because everything is now technology driven. You don't know how to save a resume to a Dropbox on your phone because you've been locked up for 26 years. And there is no digital literacy in the prison because I feel it's a system and it's designed this way for failure. There's a lot of profit being made. And I'll tell you, the second part of the other question is, what can you do? I'll give you another example of when I was in corporate America, which I just left July 12th. Believe it or not, I've been doing all this while working in corporate America up until July 12th of this year. And I had a great position, great paying job, but it just started to not sit right with my spirit. But you have to be a disruptor in the places where we can influence. And one of the things that I did, and the bank will remain nameless, is during George Floyd, we started my team, because our job is to have a voice for the low-income community. So I said, let's look at some of these industries that we're providing loans for and perpetuating that are worsening our black community. And one of them was private prisons. And our bank was one of the final banks that were still in that industry because so many had left. So many had decided they were taking a stand and not providing lending for these new institutions to be built because it's ethically immoral to create a for-profit institution where you have a quota to fill beds in order to return to your shareholders. So, because of a few of us that were squeaky wheels over and over, and these were on big calls with the CFO of the bank, where I would say, excuse me, Mr., I'll leave him nameless, why do we still bank private prisons? Do we think that's the best benefit for low-income communities? Is that really putting people over profit or profit over people? And so they eventually did pull out of that industry. And it was because of consistent messaging of people that were trusted to be the experts in this space, but whose opinions really weren't mattering. And so I think that you have to be very bold in messaging to the people, to the corporations that you patronize. Look at the companies that you spend money with. Do they use prison labor? Are they profiting from prison and incarceration? I think that we can make a stand and take a stand there. And then when you show up to the ballot box, being aware of what kind of legislation, yes, you should know what kind of legislation is on the state. You know, your senators, what are they pushing for? Are they in favor of ban the box? Are they in favor of reducing the barriers for someone to get their occupational license reinstated, like their barber license, their cosmetology license, their nursing license? A lot of people with felonies cannot get these licenses because they have a felony. Some of them make sense, right? If I killed an older lady, maybe I shouldn't be in a nursing home. You know, some of them may make sense, but some of them just make no sense. I can't get a barber license and I had a money crime 20 years ago. Makes no sense. So look to see what kind of bills are being presented by your senators, your elected officials, and at the federal level as well as the state level. Look to see so that you can vote for people. And write your senators. Write your elected officials. It's free. Show up sometimes. They will take appointments, and we don't even know that, and say, this is what matters to me. Get a petition going, you know, whatever the case may be, but use your voice in politics, for sure. Got some other questions. And Shatava, let me say real quick, Shatava is my friend. We did a little entertainment thing some years ago, and I just want to give you a shout out because she is someone I admire. She has rehabilitated so many homes in Detroit. And I'm just proud of you, and I want to say that. So thank you for coming tonight.
Well, it's so good to see you. But I have a question. As entrepreneurs, where do we go to hire these individuals from these programs? Because we travel from city to city to rehab and build housing, but we always have issues trying to find individuals to help. And I know my husband is really passionate about prison reform because of the things that his family has gone through. So we look to hire these individuals to help us. So in a place like Detroit, Atlanta, where do we go to obtain resources to even get help from people that are in these programs?
Yeah. Go ahead and answer for Detroit. And I'm gonna jump on that too, Dave, and piggyback. You know, that's where you talk to these legislators and say, listen, I want to make a change. We are looking for people who are returning citizens. We want to help them. So you put the pressure on them and put the pressure and call the media and say, look, we're not getting no help. If it doesn't work, that's what you do. So you put that pressure on them and you make them do what they say they're going to do. All right. So I think that's another valuable asset for you.
And I would also just say staffing agencies, because sometimes they're turning people away because they don't have the right type of work for them, or their background might prevent them from getting certain jobs at the staffing agency. So if you went around to a lot of staffing agencies and said, hey, we're always looking for people to do tear downs or whatever type of work, here's our information. Please call us if someone has a background and is looking for work. I think that's a good one. Or reentry programs in your area should be able to have a database of people that are looking for work.
Yes, sir.
In regards to financial literacy, how do we identify organizations and companies or institutions that will assist somebody in personal credit and business credit?
So the education, or assist them with products related to business credit and personal credit, or both?
But the thing is, where they have no credit, they have negative credit. Where do they start? How do they?
So most banks have a secured credit card or a secured loan, meaning you're going to secure it yourself with your own cash. So that's going to be approved. Most people will get approved no matter what their credit score is. Some banks might have a minimum requirement for your credit score, but even on creditcards.com, you can get your own secured credit card, which just means I'm going to put $500 into an account with you all. You all will issue me a credit card for $500. I use it, I pay it down, I continue to use it and pay it down. That will help me to build my credit. So that's something that you can do. Chime offers a credit builder. That's a newer company that you can build your credit through. But there are organizations called CDFIs, which is like the best kept secret in America. CDFIs, and that's something if y'all are in entrepreneurship or personal finance and you want to go to something or an organization that's not a bank, it's not a credit union, Community Development Financial Institution. They have mentors, they provide technical assistance to entrepreneurs, they provide loans to entrepreneurs. The banks give them money to lend it out and to use that money to provide education. So they're like an intermediary between the banks and the community. So I would also suggest a CDFI institution. That's nationwide. There's something, it's called CDFI Locator. If you look that up, Google search that, and I think it's called the OFN network, but CDFI Locator. You can put in your zip code, your city and state, and you'll get a list of all of the CDFIs in your community and look at what they do. It's so sad that people don't know about this because they don't get a big marketing budget because they are, state funded. The banks provide a little bit of money for them to be able to loan money out, but they don't advertise. So look up a CDFI for Detroit. I'm sorry I don't know the names for Detroit, but they're here. They are definitely here. Community Development Financial Institution. Doing well. I heard you.
So first and foremost, I want to say thank you for what you're doing. You are definitely doing God's work. I'm actually a graduate from Louisiana State University, where in Louisiana, education is the lowest and incarceration is at its highest. So seeing what you're doing and knowing that there is a place for this is commendable, and I just thank you for that. But my name is Lauren Evans, and I'm here with the committee to elect Macy Gaines for probate judge in Wayne County. And one of our initiatives is probate matters are family matters. What do you think that we should do, not only having individuals who are in our family that are incarcerated, but as individuals who are on the outside to be able to accept them back into the world and just being able to help with that placement and being able to be the emotional standpoint for them. Not only are they dealing with things as family members, we're also losing someone as well.
Thank you for that, and thank you for your passion. I would say for sure, you almost want to look at yourself as an intake case manager, when you're bringing someone home. You've got to kind of document some of the things about them. What is their high school? Are they high school education? Do they have other education? Did they get credentials while they were incarcerated? A lot of times you might not know that they've already gotten maybe they got a forklift certificate while they were locked up or some other type of credential. So I would say document their education, document their past employment history, the years that they worked, maybe help them create a resume, and then help them put profiles together on some of these job sites like Indeed.com. I don't know if Career Builder is around anymore. And then, get them connected with staffing agencies as well. I would also say be patient with them. Housing is really important, and that's one of the biggest things people struggle with. And coming out, especially in a city like Atlanta, you can't afford housing in Atlanta. And if you don't have the luxury to be released to a transitional center and you're expected to go straight from incarceration to somebody's house and you can't get released, there are people that stay longer because they can't get released to someone's house. And they're staying longer for months or longer. Be patient with people coming home. If you're renting a room to them, document it, give them a lease, report their rent to help build their credit. That's something that I would suggest. If you can't keep them in your home, maybe find somewhere that's gonna do a room rental for $600 or $800 a month. But the biggest thing is just support them. Support them, because I would say above education levels, not having a support system is probably another big indicator of who goes back to prison. The people who have family and support are the ones that have the most success upon reentry. So just support them, be realistic with them, set expectations, make sure that you are stern about those expectations, and just, help them along the way. It's not gonna be overnight that they get it, but if they got someone that's in their corner that's not gonna give up on them, they're just much more likely to succeed. It's a lot of work though. I mentor everyone in my program. We got 16 right now. I have one-on-ones with them every week, and it's a lot of work. But at this point, when they're telling me what they're pitching for and how much, I already got my forklift certification from the program you recommended, I've already got this, I've already got that. That's a 12-week program, and I'm seeing the results. So be patient and be consistent.
Yes, ma'am.
Hello.
All right. Hi, I'm Shakura, and I applaud you for what you are doing. It is amazing. So I have a few questions. One of the questions is, do you guys offer some type of therapy to the people who are coming home? Because I know a lot of the times, of course, they do need the things like the housing, education, but a lot of times they are dealing with a lot of different emotional issues. And so you guys, do you have different programs for that, or do you guys push them or refer them to different programs?
Great question. It's extremely important to focus on mental health. And this is the first year we actually have had 2 classes on mental health. Because in the past, we've touched on it, we've referred them to agencies that address mental health, but this year we've had 2 speakers, each of them for 90 minutes on a Tuesday evening. And so one of them discussed overcoming personal and systemic barriers, and how do you overcome those challenges. And the second one was just last Saturday. It was a Saturday session. We called it Food for the Soul Saturday. And this was a licensed therapist that did a class about what she calls post-traumatic growth versus post-traumatic stress, right? Getting out of the past of what traumatized you and moving more into a forward thought process and pattern. And she taught everyone how to meditate at the end. We did a 5-minute meditation. She showed them her singing bowl of what she does. We talked about grounding. Going outside and putting your feet on real ground is actually very beneficial for the soul, and just getting out into nature and breathing exercises. And so, yes, this is the first year we really incorporated that, because that's heartbreaking when you hear from someone that is suicidal. And we've had that every single year. Someone will come on a Zoom and say, I almost committed suicide last week. If it wasn't for this program and this system, I don't know if I would be here right now. And that's powerful. Just having people together in communion every week is mental health for them, for a lot of people.
And my other question is, can you guys hear me? Okay. So my other question is, I understand that you guys help people who have already been incarcerated. What about people who are awaiting trial? Do you guys help people with that as well? Because I know someone who's awaiting trial, and I would like to offer resources if you guys are able to.
So this is also the first year we accepted a Morehouse graduate. He is only 25, and he's awaiting trial. And he is a finance major, brilliant young man. A father at a young age, both parents deceased, kind of on his own. His grandmother, who's over 90, is raising him or helping to take care of him still. So this is the first time that we accepted him in, because he was like, I know I don't have a background, but I really need to know how to move forward despite of what's happening with me, and I don't know what the outcome is going to be. I said, absolutely. And his girlfriend, I spoke at a Clark Atlanta University program, and she came up to me after. She said, my daughter's father could really use this. So yeah, we think that's important as well, because there are a lot of people sitting in a jail cell waiting on trial or out on bail, but they're going to be just as much impacted because, there's something on their record now, or maybe they don't go to jail, but they still have a charge, know?
Right.
So, yes.
Because again, another person who didn't even go to jail, they still have that record. And they still are impacted by the same issues, having trouble finding jobs and those types of things, and housing. So that, I was just curious to see.
Yes.
Yes.
It makes sense.
So, I think this may be the last.
Yeah, we got another question?
We got one
Okay,
more.
this will be the last question.
These are great questions.
You got one? All right, here'll be the last question.
Good evening. My name is Latoria, and I just wanted to know, I know here in Detroit we have a program called Project Clean Slate, and it helps to get the felonies off for your record. So I'm just wondering, do you all in Atlanta have a program similar to that, and do you offer that?
Yes, so Project Restart partnered with the Fulton County Solicitor General's office this year, which the Solicitor General's office, this is something else y'all could potentially push for if it's not happening. It sounds like it is with this program, but the Solicitor General's office handles misdemeanor charges. The DA's office handles felony charges. So we know Fonnie Willis, who's been in the news quite a bit, her office handles felonies. So we were supposed to partner up with her office before all of the scandal kind of happened with that case back late 2023, early 2024, but they were doing an expungement clinic. So instead, we pivoted to the Solicitor General's office, and they call it a record restriction clinic. So you apply in advance, and we helped with the job fair, resource fair portion of that. So when people would come out, we would help to get them connected to resources. But you apply in advance. They evaluate the case. The Georgia Justice Project, our volunteer lawyers that evaluate their case. So when you show up to that event, you're told kind of on the spot that yes, we can dismiss these charges, or no, we won't, without the fear of, facing any crime or, penalty of any sort. We also did a warrant dismissal clinic. Now that was scary. There were literally people that were like peeking around the corner to see, are people walking out of here when they walk in? Because the jails are so full. And there's a lot of abuse that's happening in the jail. So if you have a petty warrant, why not dismiss it, get it off the books so that if you get pulled over, you're not gonna go to jail for a traffic violation or some other small violation. So I would say the DA's office and the, Solicitor General's office in Fulton County, but probably the same here, that's the office that can do those kinds of events. And it does make a big difference for people.
So it'd be the prosecutor's office here, Auditor General's office for the state of Michigan. I think I'd be remiss if I don't share. I told you guys, Tiffany and I go back. This is how cool that God works in full circle. Tiffany and I had never met as we close this down. We hadn't met in person. Oh, we have one more question? Okay, I'll get to that, but just let me say this real quick. We never met in person. But we have a friend in common, in one of my fraternity brothers, Reverend Sheffield's fraternity brothers as well, who asked me to speak for a class last year sometime. He said, hey man, I need you to speak to these folks. He said, they are returning citizens. I need you to speak on bias, and I own a business myself and do that aside from the news and stuff. He said, I need you to give your time and pour into these men and encourage and uplift them and let them know that regardless of what's happening, that the bias that's perpetuated against them and what they see, they can still overcome it. Turns out, guess what the name of the program was? Project Restart. And so I would be remiss. I think that we need to restart Project Restarts all over the country, so I didn't have to go on Zoom and do it. This is so wonderful. It's so awesome. I was going to shut it down. We got one more question, though, but you messed up my whole thunderous closeout, bro. You killing the game right now. Well, but I'm going to let you ask this kind of last question. I think you killed my closeout. But
can I tell the other part, though? I didn't know he was interviewing me until 2 days ago.
2 days ago. I knew I just didn't tell
punchline.
it. I mean, it just speaks to the power of the program and the power of this and what we can do. A gentleman asked, what can we do? I get you, man. He said, what can we do? We can do anything. We can mentor, we can talk, we can give, we can go the extra mile when someone comes in. And we can do all these things, and we should do them. This is our community. We can rally and talk to our senators, our congresspeople. So we have the power to do all of this. And so the goal is to be like Nike, baby. Just do it. All right, let's go, bro.
Love it.
Hey, I'd like to first say, Tiffany, thank you guys for what you're doing. I mean, keep saying that you're doing God's work, but I want to tell you how much of a blessing it is because, as my wife mentioned, I have experienced, not personally, but my father, relatives in my family, my brother is in prison now. And so the question I have, and I'm going to get right to it, but what we often see, being born and raised here in the city of Detroit, I've been blessed to have an opportunity to make it out of here, being a college graduate, being a professional football player. I've done a number of things. I've had an opportunity coming from what you said was the hood. But what I see, the expectation of black men,
time.
black men like me, are giving less opportunity because of our size, because of our skin tone. And I notice most black men in the hoods, from the hoods, that have lack of resources and are going through low income situations don't have. And so, now my question, with that being said, we see a bunch of individuals that go to prison, and in cities like Detroit, they go to prison for 15, 20, 30 years at a young age, and they get out at 40, 45, 50, and they do not have opportunities to advance themselves, and they start to give up, and they start to get right back on the path that took them there in the first place, whether they were guilty or innocent. So the question I have is, and I don't know everything that's happening here because we stay in Atlanta, but can you refer, and what is the age group of that you would say on a restart program such as yours, getting that opportunity later in life? Because we have a number of individuals who are in jail or in prison that are getting out at a later age, and so they're missing that time frame, and they don't know what to do with it. Are they repeating? Because like my father, he got out of prison after doing 30 years. He's trying to figure himself out. He don't know which way to turn. I'm not here, so my influence is not, you know what they say, out of sight, out of mind. It's not there like it should be. But is there, would you have any recommendations or any pinpoints for men that's his age, that's still ambitious, that's youthful? Because we see guys their age get out of prison and they still feel youthful because they haven't been out here destroying their bodies. They still feel youthful. They want to make up for time. Is there any direction you can give gentlemen that's his age? Because he still wants to live and thrive, but the world is not giving him opportunity because they see he's an older man.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for being vulnerable and sharing.
My
And
mate.
it makes me feel the same way you just felt. I've teared up so many times. I've shed so many tears just knowing what your heart feels and wanting to do more. You know what I mean? The oldest person that's been in Project Restart is 65, and we've had several 62, 63, because like you just said, they also need to get back on their feet and they've got a life to live. We were able to help one of them get enrolled in their disability, which was helpful. And the other wanted to be a dispatch person for trucking because he had been in trucking his whole life, couldn't physically do trucking anymore, loved the industry, loved his job. So dispatching was something that he felt he could do because it was tied to that industry. He knew it. And so he got into a dispatch training course, and he did complete it, but his health issues were kind of, he's still good, he's still okay, because I talked to him and his wife went through the program, both in their 60s, both with backgrounds at the same time. But he did get his, finish it, but he just wasn't able to get the business off the ground. So I think entrepreneurship and hobbies, or turning a hobby into entrepreneurship, is probably the best solution, because getting hired without a background at that age is tough. You know, getting hired in your 40s compared to these 20-something-year-olds coming out of college willing to take less is hard, you know. So I would say, think about what his hobbies are, think about what his interests are, and what his past career has been. How do you get him reconnected in some way to make some money in that space? Now, it takes some work for you to help him to do that, but is there someone that could take him under their wing and give him some work to do in that space until you figure it out?
And can I want to jump in just a little bit from a perspective of an entrepreneur, of a former cop, from all of this. Your story is your glory. He has a story. And if he goes to Mariner's house, Mariner's Inn, you know, we just did a story yesterday on the Mariners Inn, and a brother came. Mariners Inn is a substance use disorder place that houses homeless people, and most of the staff there are people who were in there. Your story is your glory. Tell him to find somewhere to go and volunteer, a nonprofit, go to a prison program and tell his story. ultimately that could lead to a job because it's a blessing in the blessing. So those are ways. I mean, that's what you do, and it becomes you doing what you love, and you doing what you're gifted to do to help somebody else, and in the meantime, being able to take care of your family.
All right, let's give our host a hand. And we appreciate you all coming out. My name is David Felton, Vice President at DABO. And again, it was a wonderful opportunity. This information is awesome. If you have any questions about what you heard today, if you know somebody that might need some resources, call 313-491-0003. It's 313-491-0003. Leave a message. They'll get into contact with us. We'll provide linkages to resources. And again, we don't have a magic wand to make all these things go away, but we do have a network where we're able to help you and try to match you up the best way we can to receive the resources that folks that have backgrounds.
And can I say,
need.
if y'all want to find Project Restart, the website is projectrestartatl.org. And on all social media, for the most part, just Project Restart ATL. That's Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. And I would be happy to talk with some of the programs in Detroit, I was gonna say Atlanta, that might be interested in something like this, because really it's a collaborative effort. It's really not recreating the wheel. These solutions exist, it's just pulling them together in the same place. And so if anyone would like to, talk further, reach out. Reverend Sheffield has my information, but this has been an honor and a privilege to speak with you all tonight.
Let's give it up to her one more time. All right, I think that's it. You guys can be dismissed.